I want to go a little bit deeper in the sense that I want to talk separately two subjects and talk a little bit deeper, because we're going to come back to talk a little bit more about godparenting. But let's go a little bit about role modeling, because I think that we take it for granted that people automatically know what that term means. Mm-hmm. In your explanation and your understanding, what is a role model in general? Before we go, as we'll talk about how it relates to godparenting. In general, for example, you talk about, I know in the book you talk about aunties and uncles and grandparents and all that sort of thing. So elaborate a little bit more on role modeling.
Okay, so where I cover that in the chapter, I break down the term role model first and foremost. What is a role and what is a model? A role is a position, it's a part that you play. Similarly, in films, you have an actor, they play in a part, they play in a role. And the word model is to be someone who is an example, or is somebody who you look to. And indeed, we have several different kind of role models in life. We can have in our life that we look up to, whether it's celebrities, whether it's musicians, whether it's even people in our own family members can be our role models, if not our parents. And so to say that we're raising up a role model, as the title suggests,
yes,
it's, for me, I'm trying to draw out the role model within you.
Okay, so technically what you're saying here is that you're encouraging people to remember that children in particular look up to us as, but not just as parents, but sometimes as aunties and uncles and other persons that come into our lives to protect our safe. You talk about safeguarding as well, as which you probably will mention a bit later on. But these are some of the things. So we talk about role modeling. You're not, because we tend to just say be a role model. Most people have never heard it. This book, I mean, I'm telling you, audience, this book is well researched, and it has done a fantastic job of explaining these things. And I'm sure at some point you'll see some reviews as well of people that have actually bought the book. And you told me about somebody that bought the book, and they were so inspired by it that they went out and bought loads of copy to give to their. Tell me a little bit about that one, because that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I can't wait for her to see this as well. So she bought a copy of Raising Up Role Models, and after reading this herself, she addresses it like it's her Bible. She went out and bought 13 more copies and distributed it as Christmas presents to other people. And among those 13 people that she gave it to as a Christmas present, one of those individuals was her own godmother.
Wow.
And her godmother, after opening it and saw it was a book, she phoned her and said, what's this you sent me? What's this about? And she said, no, just take your time to read it. When you get a chance, just read through it. So she did that, and she got a phone call about 10 days later. She said her godmother was crying. Crying down the phone saying, I can't believe I've not been this to you. And ever since receiving that, they've been in contact with each other for, they meet up every month. Once a month they meet up.
Martin, have you said this, it almost brings tears to my eyes. It goes to show when the Bible said that my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And in all my days, and I'll be very honest, I've been in ministry for many, 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 many years, and I have never seen anybody address this subject like you have addressed it.
Wow.
And even us as a minister, because we come to church and we do baby christening, baby dedications, and we sometimes have to speak to the godparents.
Yes.
And tell them what their duties and responsibilities are. And I'm sure you go in detail in the book to explain. But yet for all, I don't know how many ministers out there that have. And I'm going to challenge every minister. Before we go into that subject, before we go into targeted audience, I want to say this at this time, that every minister, I'm going to encourage you to go out and get a copy, because you need one. I needed this, to be truthful. And I will recommend it wherever I go. Thank you very much. Let's move on because of the interest of time. We have to move on.
All right.
It's fascinating talking to you, Martin.
Thank you.
You are, man, great inspiration.
Thank you.
God bless you richly. Now let's go on a little bit further on with this now. And one other thing I am going to ask is just a little bit more about the godparenting. No, you think we've done enough about God. You want to say anything more about godparenting?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about it all day. So for me, the godparent, especially during my time of research, I found many people were saying things like the role of a godparent is simply to be the alternative parent. Many individuals, especially in the Caribbean community, they feel that the godparents are to be the second parents if anything happens to the parents themselves, and that the children would then, come under their household or under their roof. There's some truth to that, but I address that in detail in the book. But what I want to say is that the role of a godparent, if anything, is only explained to the godparents for a couple of minutes at the altar, at a baby blessing or a christening, and that's about it. Maybe they'll give them a little pamphlet. I've seen like a little 3 or 4 page pamphlet that they'll give to them, but that's about it. This is a lifetime book, a lifetime manual that sits with them, that they can work with, they can use for inspiration and have conversations with their godchildren or the parents of the godchildren throughout their lifetime. But also, to come back to answering the question, the role of a godparent is to be somebody who plays the role of positive affirmations for the child, and also echoing, in many cases, what the parents are already telling the children. To give an example, parents today are having a difficult time and struggling with their own children, and for the child is hearing what the parent is saying. Jeffrey, tidy up your bedroom. Mary, can you make up your bed? Jonathan, do your homework. And it will come across as nagging to the child. The child will hear this constantly, and the more they're hearing, it's just like, again, and please, and they're frustrated.
Okay.
But the role of a godparent now, who's there not so frequently, but they care and they love and they're checking in with the godchild on a regular monthly basis at the very least, to echo and reinforce what their parents are already saying. They'll hear it and they'll say, oh, you know what? You're right, auntie, you're right, uncle. Thank you so much for saying that. Mum has been, dad has been, and you're affirming what they've already heard as nagging, but they're receiving it in love now, and they're being encouraged to take action because it's been amplified. So that's how important I see the role of a godparent.